The Last of Us was a Sony exclusive developed by Naughty Dog in 2013. The game went on to sell 8 million copies and currently holds the record for most awards won by a video game. Its story begins in 2013 in Austin, Texas. Here our protagonist Joel, along with his daughter Sarah and brother Tommy, are forced to flee their home following the sudden outbreak of a zombie-like pandemic. Traveling on foot, the trio eventually make it to a military checkpoint where a soldier shoots Sarah before Tommy can return fire. Tragically, Sarah dies in Joel's arms, and without being given a chance to grieve, the story immediately jumps 20 years ahead. In the 20 years between 2013 and 2033, the cordyceps fungus has spread throughout 60% of the human population. Those infected have turned into cannibalistic monsters or zombies. Bureaucratic governments have collapsed, and most survivors are kept in quarantine zones governed by the military. Also, a rebel group known as the Fireflies has been established, and their aim is to fight for the restoration of civilian governments. In this time, Joel has settled in a quarantine zone in Boston, where he and his badass partner Tess work as smugglers. The game really begins just after the duo have been betrayed by a black market dealer, who has sold some weapons they smuggled in without their knowledge. Unfortunately for Joel and Tess, the buyer just happens to be the leader of the Fireflies, Marlene. Marlene offers the duo the opportunity to get the merchandise back, as well as further payment. This is on condition that they smuggle a young girl, Ellie, out of the quarantine zone. Joel figures Ellie is the daughter of some officer in the Fireflies and reluctantly agrees to take her to a rendezvous point outside the quarantine zone. It isn't long into their journey, however, before Joel and Tess realise that Ellie has been infected for over 3 weeks and, given that victims usually turn after only 2 days, they realise she is immune. The reason the Fireflies want Ellie is so that they can use her immunity to reverse engineer a vaccination and save the world. Unfortunately, at the rendezvous point, all the Fireflies the trio were supposed to meet have been killed. What's worse, Tess confesses that on their journey to get there, she was bitten by an infected. Joel doesn't want to take the job any further, however Tess convinces him otherwise due to the good it could potentially do for the world. Down a member, Joel and Ellie travel on together, this time setting out to find Joel's brother Tommy, who is a Firefly. They meet up with Joel's unusual friend Bill, who helps them get a working car, and this allows Joel and Ellie to travel as far as Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, they're ambushed by hunters, who are like cannibalistic gangs, and they spend the rest of the summer getting to Wyoming on foot. In Wyoming, they finally meet Tommy, who announced that he's married and has left the Fireflies. Tommy now oversees a peaceful settlement of survivors who govern themselves. Joel's original plan was to hand Ellie over to Tommy, who could then take her to meet the Fireflies. This plan causes a rift between Ellie and Joel, as they've developed a father-daughter type bond. On reflection, Joel decides to take Ellie to the Fireflies himself, and Tommy points him in the direction of Salt Lake City. On their journey to Salt Lake City, Joel ends up getting impaled and fatally wounded, but Ellie manages to keep him alive throughout the winter by bandaging his wounds, keeping him warm, and through much difficulty, getting him antibiotics. Once Joel has recovered, the duo make it to Salt Lake City and finally reunite with Marlene. Unfortunately, Marlene tells Joel that as the fungal spores attach themselves to the brain of each victim, Ellie will ultimately be killed in their attempts to reverse engineer a vaccination. On hearing this, Joel freaks out. He kills a load of Fireflies, captures Ellie, who's unconscious on the operating table, kills Marlene, and then travels back to Wyoming to live with Tommy. When Ellie comes to on their journey to Wyoming, Joel lies to her, telling her that the Fireflies weren't able to use her to get a vaccination. Although Ellie confesses her survival guilt to Joel, we can assume that both live together happily in Tommy's commune in a father-daughter style relationship. Hey everybody, if you made it this far, thanks so much for viewing. If you felt like you got something positive out of this video, please feel free to give it a like. I am looking to get more content out in the near future, so again, if you want to keep in touch, please subscribe.